Hi, everybody. We have two wonderful poets with us today. Iris Berry will read first, and then Lucia Galloway. Iris Berry is a native Angelino and one of the true and original progenitors of the LA punk scene. She is editor of several books and the author of Two Blocks East of Vine, The Daughters of Bastards, All That Shines Under the Hollywood Sign, The Trouble with Palm Trees, and Gas Station Etiquette. She's appeared in numerous films, TV commercials, documentaries, and iconic rock videos. In the 1980s and 90s, she sang, performed, and wrote songs with the Lame Flames, the Ringling Sisters, the Dickies, the Flesh Eaters, and Pink Sabbath. She served 4 years on the board of directors for Beyond Broke Literary Arts Center. In 2009, she received her second Certificate of Recognition Award from the City of Los Angeles for her contribution as a Los Angeles writer and for her extensive charity work. Iris is the co-founder of her imprint, Punk Hostage Press, where she continues to champion and advocate for original voices. Here's a superb poet, Iris Berry.
Hi, Harry. Thank you for that lovely introduction. How are you today?
Pretty good. How about you?
I'm really good. I'm really happy to be here. Thank you for having me. First of all, I just want to, I need to apologize for my cat Lola. She has her back to the camera. I don't know what that's about, but she still wants to be in the frame. So, and I am going to read a piece about her later on, and that's called Feral Like Me. But first I'm trying to read some things that I've never read before. So, and some new things. These are, this first piece is called In Search of the Perfect. In the time it takes searching for the right exact emoji, for how I feel about me, about you, about us, what's safe, what isn't, all that time spent collectively. I could have learned another language, baked many cakes, done several good deeds, redecorated my house. We could have gone to the movies many times and had numerous conversations well into the early morning hours. But instead, here we are, divided by screens and fear of being vulnerable. Where's the emoji for that? Kind of a modern problem. All right. This next piece is called Portrait of My Los Angeles. And I actually dated this, which I wrote it January 27th, 2023 at midnight. I don't know why I did that. But anyway, yeah, I wrote this. You know, I write a lot about Los Angeles. If you know my work at all, I do love being a native Angelino, and I do love being from here, although it's changed a lot. And sometimes I feel that I'm in love with a city that doesn't exist anymore. And right now I'm in a relationship, and I live in the West Valley, in the West Hills. I live by you, Harry. I live by you. I live by Calabasas, and my boyfriend lives in Hollywood. So lots of times, most of the time, when I get up in the morning, I'll try to leave before traffic because it's a whole other animal, the traffic here. And I'll leave about 5 a.m. and the sun will just be coming up, and I'll get to see Los Angeles in a way I haven't been able to see it in a really long time. And I get to see all the things that I love. So in a sense, being in this relationship, I get to renew my relationship with Los Angeles again. And that's pretty lovely. Yes, it's pretty lovely. So, okay, so this is called Portrait of My Los Angeles. It's the earthquake weather in me. It's my love for palm trees and the way they line certain streets. My love for supermarkets with their big empty parking lots. It's taking long drives through various canyons. It's being in love with certain silhouettes and views of trees and telephone poles as the sun sets behind them, because I've seen them all my life and they're embedded in my soul. It's having love for certain streets because they have no sidewalks. It's my ability to love the ocean only through a restaurant window, but disliking it with its direct sun if asked to lay in it scantily clad for more than 2 minutes. It's my love for the stars, the ones in the sky and on sidewalks. It's having to drive far to visit friends and family, but having growing up with an empty backyard. It's only knowing the changing seasons by what's on display on the shelves at the supermarkets. It's having to drive everywhere just to get anywhere. It's being bummed when it rains, even though there's a drought. It's talking on the phone with friends more than seeing them in person. It's my love for the beach, but rarely seeing it. It's being guilty of saying it's hot, but it's a dry heat. It's refusing to go somewhere because I probably won't find a place to park, and yet there are parking lots everywhere. It's all the famous streets and boulevards with their incredible history. It's many different cultures and subcultures and cults. It's the place where people come to be somebody. It's definitely a love-hate thing. Sometimes it's like the greatest drug and the best place on earth. And sometimes it's like telling someone you love them and they don't say it back. But it's my home. I was born here. I can't imagine living anywhere else. I can't imagine leaving Los Angeles. All right, so seems to be a lot of grief going around these days, a lot of loss. And so this is the grief portion of my reading. And I'll start out with my cats, although Lola's still here. But I have to say, okay, first of all, Lola was a rescue. She forced me to rescue her. And sometimes I feel like she rescued me, but she'll be 14 in mid-October. I just count that as her birthday because that's when she forced me to rescue her. She sat outside my house in a pile of leaves, basically sinking like quicksand because her mother had taken her rest of her family and left, and Lola was left behind. So she meowed really loud for like about 45 minutes. And finally I was like, where is that coming from? And she didn't quit. And the funniest thing is she is the quietest cat. So maybe she just, used it up when she needed it. All right. So, but first I'm going to read this piece about Boris, another cat that I had who's no longer with us. And it's called The King of Forbes Avenue. For Boris the cat, may he rest in peace. The day you kicked the bucket, every living thing on Forbes Avenue that was smaller and couldn't outrun you threw a celebration, but not me. I threw a fit. The neighbor who brought you back never won again. And as for the guy who hit you, well, it wasn't his fault. You heard me calling you, and you darted straight out of that field. You didn't look. You never looked when I called you. Never. You just came home like the loyal cat that you were. You came home for the last time. And when that car screeched on its brakes and hit you, every gopher on the block did the can-can. Every rat, mouse, and squirrel threw confetti and passed out cigars. And in French accents, they chanted, "Vive les Forbes" at a thunderous roar. Every crow was smiling and every sparrow was doing the two-step, all in the honor of your passing, at the news of your death, at the coming of your going. Yes, you made quite an impression, and you left your legacy behind. You were definitely king of my jungle. You were good, and I'm sorry your stay on this earth was a short one. It was brief, but it sure meant a lot to me. Boris was quite a predator, basically killed anything that got in its path. May he rest in peace. And this is for Lola. Lola. All right, this is called Feral, and I pretty much rescued her. And it's just recently for the first time, which is a California poetry that was put out by Moontide Press on book. Like me, I think about you and how much we're like, both left for dead on streets too angry and brutal, with people that have love on their lips and bloodlust in their eyes, hearts, souls, and groins, as they dangle the carrot and say, "Here, kitty, kitty." I look at you and think how much we're alike. Both left for dead on the streets littered with venom, vacant of empathy, and painted with empty promises at the intersections of fuck you and fuck me. Intersections that devour souls at a mere whisper and the hearsay of love, vulnerability, honesty, and the scent of kindness. I look at how much we're alike. We're both left for dead by the very ones that gave us life. I know I saved you as you were being swallowed by a quicksand of leaves, an old tire, a carburetor, and houses foreclosed out there on the avenues and the streets where souls go to die. And the last things that come to the closest to touching their unwanted bodies are chalk and tape for protection that came just too late. I look at you as you lay beside me. I feel warm knowing I saved you and you saved me. I put my hand out to touch your face and you bite me and then you lick as if to apologize for your nature, your instinct, and I let you. You only do it because you're feral like me. I love you for it, all the. This next piece, how to outrun the slow death of your mom. Yeah, my mom passed away in 2015, and she was sick for about 6 years. So this is what I did. Stop sleeping, stay awake, stay distracted, or sleep too much. Never get out of bed. Stay in your pajamas, watch bad TV, watch good TV, watch old movies, watch anything that has nothing to do with your life. Do whatever it takes to not feel. Chain smoke, do too much for other people, people who don't ask for your help. And when they don't appreciate you, get really mad at them for not being psychic about how you've helped them. Don't pay attention to serious conversations that have anything to do with your dying mom. Take on as many projects as possible. Paint your kitchen floor, clean out your closet, and don't throw away anything, especially the useless stuff like phone numbers on napkins for people you don't remember meeting. Make plans, but don't keep them. Don't return phone calls, especially if they want to talk about your dying mom. No one really wants to hear about it. It's too close to home. We all have mothers, some dead and some still alive. We all die, and it makes people uncomfortable. They only ask because they don't want to seem like they don't care, but they will only say things that hurt you. They don't mean to because most people don't know what you're really going through. Stop being serious. Listen only to people who are drunk and don't want to talk about your dying mom. Get in fights with people you love over little things like the dishes or the trash. Don't talk about family members. Don't talk to family members who bug you or don't get you, the ones who want to tell you how to live your life because it's impossible for them to know. So you won't listen and it will only bug them more. So just avoid them altogether. Change everything about your life. Move, get a new job, sign on dotted lines, but don't read the fine print. Look hours for things you know you will never find. If you drink alcohol, drink more, but don't drink and drive. One death is enough. If you don't drink alcohol, then eat, and eat badly, sugar, starch, salt, and eat a lot of it and make sure it's not good for you. Breakfast, dessert, for dinner. Eat anything that can outrun you and doesn't taste like cardboard. Frequent, seize candy so much that you know each other on a first name basis. Live way beyond your means, use all your credit cards, max them out, but you don't need, and let your temper get the best of you. Cuss and say things you normally wouldn't, and let your lower self run the show. Cuss people out in traffic, drive fast and tell people off. Tell your friends off. Tell them what you've really been thinking all these years. Get it out. Get it all out, because in the end, after all this blows over, this is the only time most people will get. And that's what I did. This is called As Good as It Gets. In the past 2 years, I've learned that just because you're loyal, honest, and devoted does not mean it will be reciprocated. That sometimes, sadly, no good deed goes unpunished, and most movies do not resemble real life, especially the ones with big budgets. And what my grandmother's told me about men is true. I've also learned that no matter how much you know and love somebody, they can still have secrets that could break your heart and possibly kill you. Don't rely on fortune cookies, but never let a good wishbone go to waste. And that nothing is personal and everything is personal. No one is perfect, especially me. And the more mistakes I make, the more human and nice I am towards you. And the more powerful I think I am, the more danger I am in. I've learned that everyone dies, some quickly, some slowly. So it's best to live the life you really want. It's taken me forever to realize that I still haven't grown up, and that sometimes I still have the fantasy that as long as I am a good person, life will get better. But what I've really learned is that the clock is tick, tick, ticking. And maybe I should do my best to leave this place with a smile on my face and love in my heart for you and for me. And maybe that's as good as it gets. And if that's the case, oh, self lucky. And this is the last piece I'm going to read today. And thank you so much for having me, Harry. It's always a pleasure. This is called Thank You, Henry Mancini. Thank you, Henry Mancini, for all the neon boulevards and all the city streets of all the cities, and the jazz and the poetry of the downtowns and the uptowns. For Sunset Boulevard in the rain, Hollywood Boulevard at twilight, and Wilshire Boulevard at dawn. For the Pacific Coast Highway, Union Station, and the view from Mulholland Drive, both sides, San Fernando Valley and Los Angeles. For jazz gliding its way down translucent highways at 1 a.m. through the steam of car headlights in the pouring rain. For making me feel clean when I was dirty, and for the fantasy that my life was somehow better than it was, and for the romance when there wasn't any. For crazy but surprisingly smooth hungover mornings when an all-nighter should have been painful. Thank you for the lengthy, warm Santa Ana summer afternoons overlooking a city from a dingy apartment with only the view and you to save me. Thank you, Henry Mancini, for those ephemeral evenings draped across Hollywood at midnight like a ghost town, timeless, glamorous, and still, for the exquisite and the calm, and for the clean and regal lift of elegance onto a stairway of stars leading to a luxurious and illustrious world where nothing earthly can touch me. Thank you.
Thank you, Iris, for the lovely poems. You have so much love in your heart for LA. I love that last poem, and your love of cats is so tender. And the Ella Jake poem about your mom, you know, it's just a pleasure to hear you talk. And you really do love LA. You just bring it to life for us and through your poetry. I wanted to ask you a question about your press.
Thank you.
Hostage Press. When did you begin your press? When did you create it, and how long has it been going on? And how many books have you published?
Funny you should ask. We're working on our 50th book right now. It's by Mike Roach. It's called I Play with Giants, and he is the bass player for a band, a seminal punk band, TSOL. And so that's our 50th book. But we started the press on January the 13th, 2024. We will be 12. And myself and A. Razor started the press in 2012. Yeah, 12 and 12 is 24. And we started it not only to publish, my and his book, because I was editing his book called Better Than a Gun and Knife Fight, and Luis Rodriguez was going to put the book out on Tia Chucha, but he told us, yes, I want to put the book out, but it's going to be 3 years. Why don't you guys publish it yourselves? And I was like, wow, that's like asking me to take apart the Empire State Building and then put it back together by hand in the dark. Like, I never thought about publishing or thought I could. So we decided to try, and here we are almost 12 years later. It's exciting.
That's fabulous. And how long have you been writing? When did you start writing poetry?
I started writing at the age of 7. I didn't know that's what I was I lived in a musical house. There was a lot of, my brothers were into the Doors and into Motown, but my mom would always play like the Alan Sherman record. And I was I was influenced by Dr. Seuss and Grimm fairy tale.
Your visual just froze up, and you
write a poem, but I didn't know that I was writing a poem, and eventually there became quite a collection.
And where did you go to school? What high school did you go to?
I grew up in Clymer, but I went to high school in Sun Valley called Polytech. Can you hear me, Harry?
I can hear you now, yes.
I'm so sorry about that. They're working, the gas company's working in the street, so it might have something to do with that.
Yeah.
Where did you lose me? I'm sorry.
No, it happens all the time with us. Every once in a while on Zoom, we've learned, wabi sabi, accept the imperfections and go on. So thank you so much for such a lovely, exceptional reading. I'm always touched by your love for Los Angeles, and you just bring it to life so vividly. So thank you, Iris Berry. You're just a marvelous writer and a marvelous chronicler of Los Angeles. And as you said, many people come here to be somebody, and you are somebody. And Iris Berry. So thank you very much, Iris Berry.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure, Harry. Thank you.
It's mutual. Our next poet is Lucia Galloway. Lucia Galloway's poetry collections include Some Words for Meanwhile, Future Cycle, and the award-winning chapbook, The Garlic Peelers, Quill's Edge. Earlier books are Venus and Other Losses, Plain View, and the chapbook Playing Outside, Finishing Line. Her work appears in the London Reader, Mid-American Review, Nimrod, the Sow's Ear, and Tar River, among other journals. She is proud to be among the founders of Fourth Saturdays, one of only 2 continuous reading series of Los Angeles and San Bernardino counties. Here's a splendid poet, Lucia Galloway.
Thank you. That was a wonderful reading that Iris brought us, and I'm really pleased to be here. It's an adventure. I had some adventures with Zoom, actually, during the pandemic in trying to launch and maintain my own the poetry group I work with. And so I'm quite sympathetic to all of these glitches that come on. And I think we can probably expect more, but in any case, we'll live them out. I have poems here that may last 20 minutes. I don't know, but I've sort of garnered them or harvested them from various of my books. Many of them come from a manuscript that I'm working on now that hasn't yet been published. So I'll just start and read these poems, and we can talk about them later if there's time. The first one is titled Oracle. Oracle. Perhaps they're cast in red, blue, yellow, birds' hallucinations, paths of dots, waves like cancellation lines across a stamp, smudges where wings have brushed the ether. Conveyance of the current's lift and sudden drop to ultimate arrival. Green surrounding green and light struck. Green that captures breeze and nudges sunbeams, hollowing an angle where the nest will rest. This notch of an investment, cradle of angles, those bent lines. The next poem, Elm and Palm, a migration. Elms made shady arbors, havens of even sidewalks all the way to school. Autumn leaves drifted from their crowns through lower stories, twirling, dressing pavements, gold medallions for Midwestern towns, the archetype of what a leaf should be. Here in California, palm trees define the width of boulevards, the sites of libraries, landmarks, city parks, their lofty preening way lending the air of tropical grandeur to my adopted home. You might be tempted to picture me, fingers in the mulch, nursing palm seedlings in egg carton candles. Are those spears their tiny leaves? No need, because already in my yard, towering palms preside, 2 pair, in fact, spread fans and fronds. One couple soars, silhouettes against a fine-spun sky. The other 2 lap and interlace their fronds, close chums, slicing the blue to slivers. Self-reliant these, but rarely cordial. Keep me, palms, renew me. You may claim the sunshine, I'll settle for the rare cloud. Be sentinels on my journey, trajectory that thrusts upward, trusting a new sky. This vertical axis essential as once the grooves of wagon wheels across the plain. Once I could see her, the woman beating a path through prairie grasses shoulder high, keeping the sun's arc visible above. Elm trees might have grown in groves that she could not know, where roots delve deep into dense matted soil. Could ever a palm have found her here? Now a change of pace. I consider voice lessons. This is for Rose Edwards, 1919 to 2014, who was my voice teacher for, probably about 6 or 7 years. And she had been my husband's voice teacher for longer than that. And so she was an institution in our lives that we handled with grace. And I want this as a privilege, a tribute to her. I consider voice lessons. I want to improve the way I talk, the ring, the register, the music, what comes out. In conversation, I want, in short, more clout. To these, Rose says, I'll teach you, dear, to sing. Why not, I muse. This could be the thing to make a difference. Didn't know then I'd route the rest of my Midwestern twang, make count of every smeary diphthongs crippling the wing of vowels pure ascent. Could I keep pace? Lessons began. Breathe deeply from the gut, from the belly. Think instrument, the throat and mouth a space, bell-like, lips and tongue a clapper, not jelly. Each interval, each syllable, each vowel, a rung on the diva's ladder. Do, re, mi, fa, sol, la. Invited to the green room. As many of you know, the green room is a place where entertainers gather when they're not on stage. Just look, I say to myself from my perch in the green room as the divas swoop in. Red, pink, purple, gold lame, their concert dresses swish from hangers held high or draped voluptuous over flawless arms. One, then another and another, tense even in motion, holding nerves in check. They chatter like tropical birds in jungle trees, flutter to dressing rooms and back to preen over palettes of eyeshadow, tubes of lipstick in stage red. Look, I ask myself, just how is this room green? I conjure jungle foliage, overweeding trees. There's nothing of quiet maple shade or elm I knew from childhood. This bower seethes with egos primed as summer passion. Seductions of Verdi's Rigoletto, the capers and confusions of Mozart's Così fan tutti. The stuff of human striving heightened, condensed in music's net. I am asked only to sing the halftime chorus lyrics, Saint-Saëns Spring. Before opera was the rage, actors might bring their roles to life on grassy mounds with audience round the edges of the green. Now I am called from the green room for a like performance. Small singer who nests in the grass. I'll be the lark ascending. Hal's Garden for Harold Pierce, 1923 to 215. This was a man that I didn't know, but I knew fairly well his daughters and his wife. And so I was at the funeral ceremony with friends of mine and with my husband, and I found it to be a very meaningful service. Hal's Garden, 1. Hal's daughters numbered 6. 3 he'd grown from seed. 3 he'd transplanted to his plot when, divorced, he'd wooed and wed their mother, second bride. How these 6 girls flourished in his tending. Their smiles, their dreams, their yawns, their messy mops of hair. He cherished every foible, made them seem pretty, made them proud. Hal gardened, too, in shrubs and hedges, beds of splendid flowers. He fertilized and weeded, growing roses there. 2. Mourners at wakes and funerals come by custom clothed in black. Hal's arrived in rosy hues. Women outnumbered men, husbands in back of the closet, Hawaiian to match a bevy of florals in polyester crepe, who held their silhouettes proud as their bosoms tidy, minding the occasion not to glow. But dresses sighed, skirts stirred, as one by one they took the mic to say how Hal had nurtured them, called forth their glamour, made them roses, every one. All right, here's a change of pace. I always enjoy riding trains ever since I was a child of 6 and went by train during the January of probably 1946 to be a member of my uncle's wedding. And I've loved riding trains ever since then. This is titled Riding the Amtrak Southwest Super Chief. Ephemeral as mist photo ops, pictures scroll at my window, half-naked boulders held into root tentacles. Georgia is still raw where the railroad cut through. Tree-lined ravines flash sun-spangled steams. Images flip away quicker than last month's calendar scene. We'd left the Albuquerque station, its Spanish facade a poster of early morning sun, its broad platform lined with cellars of Navajo silver, turquoise. Coffee in hand, I want only to board the train, feel its steel tons move beneath me, listen to the clack and purr of the track. Midday, a ruckus, gusts of breeze as porters burst through couplings, swing down aisles, sing out seatings for the dinner car. Dinner at 7, their passage in reverse. Through several cars, I lurch and sway toward the car where tables set with forks and knives shimmy with the brio of open track. Northeast of Santa Fe, the rails twin an old-time power line, wooden poles and crossbeams set with glass domes, transmitters to insulate the wood from catching fire. Charmed, I see glass cups on 2-dimensional tables shining, green, umber, clear, in early evening light. Our cups rattle in their saucers. By dusk, we cut a corner of Colorado toward the great Midwestern plain, where country roads at mile intervals bisect Kansas farmlands, where engineers must sound the train's whistle at each crossing. I bet you've heard its plaintive moan as the train nears, traces relentless over darkened fields, reminding, insisting. Maybe, when we're lucky, its nocturnal refrain's a lullaby. Sleep now, rest. Let's see. Here's a poem I wrote recently about remembering my grandmother's kitchen and how she used to make pancakes for us in her cast iron skillet. I was moved to write to add into this poem a trek down a sidewalk. It wasn't really a sidewalk; it was a boardwalk from the kitchen door to the outhouse at the rear of the yard. And I remember the outhouse as a pleasant sort of refuge. So I wrote this poem, In-house and outhouse. Something sizzles in the iron skillet in the kitchen atop a fire-heated burner on grandmother's iron stove. She's busy flipping pancakes, serving them onto our plates, perfect golden rounds, delicate yet hearty like the crocheted borders of doilies that adorn her parlor furniture. We push back our kitchen chairs to go outside, trip down a path of a walkway of worn planks to visit the outhouse, where behind its hinged door, inside close walls, we savor the relief that comes when we are seated comfortably atop the round holes. Our bodies warm their smooth rims. We pay our respects to what we are as animal, believing in this, our creaturehood, not less nor more than our humanity. And here's a poem that I like a lot called Caprice. It's semi-realistic, and it has its inspiration partly in a piece by Henri Matisse, The Three Sisters, which some of you might know. Revving their engines, three ballsy bikers hurtle off a precipice, leaving their wives and lovers on stage drinking tea. This trio seated at a table in front of a backdrop of striped canvas. A waiter enters, starts folding linen napkins to make birds. He places them on their laps, asks, tea or coffee, absinthe, sherry, rum? He returns with a book open to Matisse, The Three Sisters, whose fingers dangle limp, like tassels from their wrists. Waiter exits as wind begins to gust from an offstage machine. Unused on their laps, the napkins are caressed by women who, to ensure themselves beloved, grasp at napkin folds and wings for transformation. But they must not fly, these birds, their dignity bare, needful. At final curtain, each in turn will stand, and flapping her delicate wings, she'll make her exit. All right, this is the last poem, I think, in this collection. It's called Short Feature in Extremis. Let's face it, casting this thing's a bitch. Nobody really wants to do it, or if they do, they haven't got the chutzpah to make it work. So, darling, it's up to you and me to bring off this performance. You be the one who gasps and heaves, fighting for breath at the Japanese restaurant. You've got a piece of chicken in your throat. Then you're staring at a morsel you've disgorged on your plate after I've given you the Heimlich. I'll be the one who gets woozy touring the stations of the Underground Railroad that stifling Vermont afternoon in Brandon. I'm lightheaded in a crowded basement passage where slaves hid from U.S. Marshals scouring Vermont. Oxygen running low. If only I could escape to the river. Now, you be the wedding guest behind a pillar at the reception. Gasping and rasping. Can't swallow a mushroom tidbit because the stuffing's a bolus billowed in your esophagus. You point to the plate of hors d'oeuvres. I shove at you a champagne float to wash it all down. I guess that leaves me as the tourist who faints in the hallway outside Emily's bedroom that sultry August day in Amherst. What? You think my parts are loftier, more dignified than yours? Bullshit. What could be more exalted? Whose story more sought, memoir more lauded than that of a person in extremis, going to the very brink, falling over the precipice, grasping at roots and stems before being snatched miraculously back from death. Honey, you'll be fabulous. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Lucia. You're fabulous. I love your landscape, your poem about your grandmother's kitchen, your love of, Hal's garden and the green room. You have such empathy and love of others. And I love your love of train. I love that poem. You're such a precise observer of the inner and the outer landscapes. When did you write your first poem, Lucia?
I think the first poem I met that really qualifies as a poem would have been in college. I wrote a few poems for, believe it or not, for a speech class I had, so that I would have something novel to read when it was my turn to read. But I didn't really continue until I finished graduate school, and then I took it up again.
And where did you go to college and grad school?
Okay, well, I was an undergraduate at a small church-related college in northwestern Ohio, from the liberal wing of the Mennonite Church, and this was Bluffton College at Bluffton, Ohio. Very small. The population of the student body was probably about the size or smaller than my high school student body, which was in Normal, Illinois. And Normal, Illinois is the home of is the twin city with Bloomington, where Normal houses the Illinois State Normal, and Bloomington is home to Illinois Wesleyan University. So I've been in college towns most of my life, if not all of it.
Were you born in Ohio?
I was born in Illinois and grew up as a child in Illinois. I was sent to school in Ohio because my parents wanted me to go to the church-related college.
You mentioned Normal, Illinois. There was a woman, she's gone now. She passed on a couple of years ago, Ann Nitsky, and she grew up in Normal, Illinois. And she has a book called Window Light about a place she lived on the beach in Venice. That's I remember that's the first time I heard about Normal, Illinois. What is it that attracts you to the poetry form?
That's a very good question. I'm not sure I could answer it very well, but I tend to be sort of a formalist, just in general. And I was challenged to write poems in form by learning about the different forms, sonnets, and so forth. And I would try to do it. And I had a knack for coming up with things that rhymed. And so people would be amazed that I could write something that rhymed. But they thought of poems as rhyming things. And usually if they were presented by me or someone else with a free verse poem, they wouldn't quite know what to do with it because it didn't rhyme. But the fact that I could write rhyme was definitely a plus.
Well, when I went to college, I went to Northridge and I studied with Ann Stanford. And each week of I don't know how many weeks were in that semester, let's say 15. And each week we'd have to write 2 poems. One would be a sonnet, one would be a sestina, one would be a villanella, one would be a metaphor, one would be syllabics. So, that work really broadened me out, learning about the metrics and the different forms. Go ahead.
That's wonderful to know, because I have in my collection here a number of poems in form, but I didn't choose very many to read because, well, I don't know, I wasn't sure. But I like the villanelle quite well as a form.
Yeah, I love those. Who are some of the poets? You mentioned you're being a formalist. Who are some of the poets that influenced you before you began writing poetry?
Well, Robert Frost was one of my first, and Emily Dickinson. I would say those two were the first that influenced me as a poet. Yeah.
Well, Robert Frost used to talk about, what you do with the material, makes you the artist, not just the content and then the sound of the poems too. We have Iris with us on the show here, back with us. Why don't you two each take a minute and say what you saw or heard from the other poets' work and engage us all in here. Let's start with you, Lucia. What did you see and hear that you liked about Iris's poetry?
What I think what I saw and liked, or rather liked, because I didn't really see it on the page, but I liked the conversational foundation of it, and the fact that it really seemed sincere and true without being something that one might instinctively shy away from. So I was invited in, and at the same time, I was extremely elevated and somehow enthralled by her use of her personal experience. It was presented in an elegant sort of way that was convincing and didn't make you feel like, oh, gee, I'm some kind of sucker for this stuff, and want more of it. I really appreciated the elegance and the form of it. Thank you, Iris.
Thank you.
Iris, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, I appreciate your work. First of all, I loved the conversational part about it. Like, are we really going to pull this thing off? And I felt very pulled in. Like, I felt like I was there. And I loved the poem about your grandmother, breakfast, and her cooking out of her oven. And, all those details and your just articulation of where you were. I felt like I was there. And I just love that. And that's what I love about writing, is that we're painting pictures with words, and hopefully people are feeling what we're feeling. And I was completely transformed into what you were reading about, which I love. So thank you. And thank you for having us together, Harry, because otherwise I would have never had the opportunity to hear your work. And I love that you talk about how you spent most of your time in school, which I'm so jealous of, because that's all I ever wanted to do was get to go to, college or whatever and get a higher education. But yeah, and I just love your work, and I love all the detail that you have, and I really felt transformed. And again, what is the name of that poem about your grandmother, her cooking breakfast? What is the name of that piece?
Let's see.
Was it in-house, out-house?
That's an interesting question, Ira, because I struggled so much over the title of the poem and didn't really find it
oh, interesting.
Something appropriate. I think I just ended up calling it in-house and outhouse, or in-house or outhouse.
And I loved that. No, in-house, outhouse. That's what you called it.
Yeah, that was what I called it finally, because I couldn't think of anything that would capture some of the the down-to-earth reality and still seem to have something transcendent about it.
And I think what I loved about sorry for interrupting, but what I love about your work, it's like, because we're storytellers, right? And we're telling about our lives, and we're telling things that other people are never going to get to know. It's almost like we are the camera. We're capturing these moments that are gone, and we're letting them live on. And that's what I loved about your work, because I would have never been able, as like in-house, outhouse. Like that's so great. I love that you call it.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that you talk about your grandma's kitchen and her stove. Incredible. Like we've got microwaves here. So
yes. It was really incredible. She could take a pan off, and you could see the actual flames, live flames in the cradle of the burner.
Wow. Yeah. Actual fire.
That was a long time ago. That was when I was a young person. So it was quite a while ago, but I think I'm the same age as Harry, because we looked it up on the web and my husband found it. I think we're about the same age.
there's so much warmth in both of you. And I love what Iris said about your work. Where are you living right now, Lucia?
Oh, I live in Claremont, California. Claremont. Yeah. And we own a home here. We moved here from Pasadena, where we had lived previously. And we had come down from the Bay Area years ago when my husband took a position at Caltech. So I lived in Pasadena for a while and got the community. And it was a really quite a nurturing place for faculty and sub all the,
Well, it's time for us, they do, one show after another here on live shows to for the people who live here at MPTF. So, that old saying, television waits for no man or no woman. But before we go, I want to thank you both for such lovely readings. You really touch my heart with what you see and what's inside of you. And I love cats too, Iris. And so I want to just make an announcement about next week, next Tuesday, the wonderful actors, Corinne Conley, Helen Richmond, and Kay Wiseman, all residents at MPTF, will read from Natalie Diaz's post-colonial love poem, which won the Pulitzer Prize. So thank you, Iris Berry and Lucia Galloway. And here's Allegra Leedom. Thank you all.
Thank you, Harry.
Thank you, Harry. Thank you, Lucia. Nice to meet you.
Thank you, Iris. Yes, it was a wonderful experience. Thank you.